I see a red Friday and I want it painted Black Friday. It is Black Friday. The I guess less official, more consumerist, but perhaps therefore more celebrated holiday for those of us in the United States. Welcome to Tales of Praxis on a holiday weekend in the dead of winter. I am your host, my dear friends and gamers, Aaron Suduko, the founder of withtheterriblefate.com, your first and final source for all literary studies and celebrations of video games as a form of storytelling. If you were observing yesterday, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, got to enjoy time with family and time with gratitude, as we were talking about in the stream on Wednesday. Sorry to be a few minutes late on this evening. First, I was tending to the old mainstay of the stream, the little resident repeatlet, who is always needy and was all the giddier and needier on this Friday evening because we've had the first snow in a while in Colorado. Not the first snow of the year. We got an unexpected and quickly burned away snow a few months ago, but it's the first snow that really feels like winter snow. And she loves to play in the snow. I joke that she's a husky with no legs, so she wanted to be out there. And then I was trying to fix the silly issue I've had, which I'm sure you can see with my green screen, which is just not cooperating. I think I might need to just wash it or adjust it. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm going to try to put some time into fixing it over the weekend because I imagine it frustrates me more than anyone on the stream, but it's the same way I was before I got a decent mic situation. It grates on me to have issues with the AV quality because I'm so anal about those things myself. So I hope it's not as frustrating to you. For those of you who don't know, Tales of Praxis is a series that I've been exploring on With a Terrible Fate for the better part of a year at this point. It's a combination of streams and written articles dedicated just to analyzing and exploring and celebrating the full range of Bandai Namco's Tales JRPGs, a long-running and masterpiece, in my opinion, series that made a big impact on me as a gamer and a thinker and a fan of literature and a philosopher in training growing up. And I know meant a lot to a lot of people, many of whom have visited the stream or engaged with the works that I've published. So I'm working through them all, not in chronological, but rather by virtue of their thematic connections and whatever order we see fit in that sense, in hopes of better understanding them not only on their own terms, but also as an intertextual conversation concerned with the same themes, the same questions in our lives and issues of how to understand and conduct ourselves and build the future that we want in a robust, multifaceted language that emerges over the course of the games. So that's what we've been doing on these live book clubs on Twitch for the past few months, as well as in the long-form written content I've published for the series on With a Terrible Fate. Go ahead and check it out on withtheterriblefate.com if you're interested. Everything from character studies to comparative studies between different games in the series and everything in between, with more on the way soon. I've been working on something more in the domain of proper academic philosophy for the last little bit, but we're going to get back to the Tales studies very soon, and I am champing at the bit to get caught up with those. Regulars will know I have plenty of ideas to work through, which will be coming soon. Pottery, welcome, my friend. Happy Friday. Glad you found your way back here. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and if you copped any great Black Friday deals, let me know. Don't keep them to yourself, especially on the gaming ones. I always find myself overwhelmed by all of the insane sales that PSN has on all of the games for the PlayStation. So I kind of rolled through a couple screens and just let my eyes glaze over and didn't even know what to do with myself. I think I bought some game that typically retailed at a normal retail price and was on sale for $5. And the funny thing is, I couldn't even tell you right now what it was, but I know I was excited about it and it seemed like a good purchase at the time. So I'll have to go back and check what I actually bought. Oh, there you go. Yes, one of those. Well, yes, I have some other people of that kind in my life too. Well, then I hope you had a fine Thanksgiving back in October and a fine Friday, all the same. We're going to get into Tales of Graces F, which, if you're not familiar with the stream, is the current Tales game that we're working through in a close reading. It's been a lot of fun, a really great and rewarding one for seeing some of the similarities, but also differences between it and the other titles, because as we've been working through and thinking about, it does seem, especially as we're getting deeper into it, to me at least, to be something of its own beast. And it's interesting to just sit with that and consider what it is about the game that makes it that kind of thing. Yeah, that's fair. I can totally appreciate that struggle, Pottery. With me being in between day jobs, I'm sort of in the same boat. That's why my purchase was all of $5. But I hope to live vicariously through some of my friends' Black Friday purchases, at least. Here's one thing that I was thinking of by way of easing back into Tales of Graces on a fine Friday evening. So you might or might not remember, we're on Mount Zavhert at this point. We're at the cusp of encountering this Amarcian enclave after having learned that Pascal is an Amarcian, the ancient race that was thought to be extinct until we found out very nonchalantly that she is one of them. And it got me thinking earlier today just about mountains and the role of mountains, symbolically speaking, in this series. I'll confess, I had a Zoom call with my extended family for Thanksgiving yesterday, which was quite nice, and I saw some of my family members whom I hadn't laid eyes on virtually in a while. And my aunt said she hadn't seen me in a while, and looking at the long hair and the beard, she pulled out the comparison right away that she thought I looked like Jesus. So I don't know what to do with that. It's probably not good for my ego at the end of the day. But it did get me thinking back to religious symbology, which is something that, of course, has come up more than once in the Tales series. How could it not? But it hadn't in a minute. And thinking about mountains and Mount Zavhert, it got me just considering the broader symbolic context of those objects, especially in terms of the idea of a hermeneutic of verticality in these games. Like we talked about before, I think it was Grail who brought it up in terms of not only many games starting out on foot and then gradually gaining more mobility through ships and finally air travel, but also the games ascending in many cases to these kind of final battle confrontations or antagonist strongholds that are in the sky. And what does that mean? What is it for the antagonist to try to find this vantage point external to the world from which to subsume the world? And what is it for us to rise to their level and face them on their own terms? And I was thinking, for me at least, like, mountains don't oftentimes have that same kind of significance, because oftentimes, as is the case right now in the game, you just kind of find yourself pushed from one quest to another in the main topography of the game, and you happen upon a mountain at some point. And it might not always seem that significant, but if you think back across some of these games, really some of the interesting centerpieces are these mountains, right? This is surely not a full catalog, but just to get our juices flowing, I was doing some reflection and think about things like, of course, you have Mount Zaleho in Tales of the Abyss, where you have a Sephiroth, one of the vital points of the world, and artifacts of the planetary score, without getting too deep into spoilers there. Something like Tales of Vesperia, your favorite, of course, Pottery. We have Mount Temsa, origins of the Critians and their whole relationship to the world before they also ascended beyond the mountain. Speaking of that verticality, of course, most recently in the Tales of Praxis stream, we had Mount Killaros, this unique point of access to the Empyreans, the spiritual fundaments of the world, and the place the gang needed to travel to in order to awaken them in hopes of ousting Innominat from the world and into that external vantage point, his embodiment in the sky. And now, of course, we have the Amarcians here at Mount Zavhert. Right? It got me thinking of Mount Sinai in the religious vein, whence the title of this stream, Fire on the Mountain. Because, of course, well, maybe not of course, but if you're not nominally familiar with your Bible lore, and I was no Sunday school kid or anything like that, but one of the iconic moments from early biblical lore was the idea of God descending and delivering the tablets with the Ten Commandments to Moses atop Mount Sinai, and among other religious signs, like the top of the mountain alighting with flame. And so I think there is this kind of deep spiritual aspect to what it is to ascend a mountain. And if we think about the idea of these antagonists trying to find a place outside of the world from which to capture and reinterpret the world, I almost feel like mountains are sort of a more human, reconstituted vision of that same effort. This idea that people striving to reach the heavens and achieve some sort of spiritual enlightenment can almost ascend beyond the world while remaining tethered to it. And so we get these fixed points of great elevation on the world itself, rather than something that's just suspended in the air like Deus's Castle or Tarkaron, or pick your favorite flavor of endgame JRPG villain, Castle in the Sky, right? This idea that they're a spiritual center for aspiring to something beyond ourselves, and yet, interestingly, exactly at that point of aspiration beyond the physical realm, we can also find these relics, these artifacts that give us deeper aspect to the history and foundations of the world, both spiritually and historically, whether those are artifacts like the tablets with the Ten Commandments, or artifacts like these stones with the planetary score on them, or whatever the Amarcians may promise us now here. But I think especially as we're considering what it is to explore the depths of this world's history through the context of these as yet not totally clear, very personal spiritual journeys that all of these characters are going through, especially Sophie with the way in which she's wrestling with this purpose she doesn't want to confront, that seems to be programmed into her, and whether or not she was reincarnated, and what it is to deal with the reality of death when you can somewhat recollect it. It's, again, as I was saying about Graces more broadly, a really interesting, slightly different context for revisiting this thematic core that you see emerge in a number of these games. So that's my food for thought to kick off Friday. I'm excited to see where this goes next. It's funny though, Pottery, like I don't know if you get this way about things like this, but one of the reasons I wanted to dwell on it was I totally get what you mean that the symbolism is too strong to ignore, but I feel like oftentimes for me, when the JRPG worlds are so big and robust and there's so many different environments in them, and we're so concerned with the practicality of navigating through them in our playthroughs, it's easy to write off a mountain as, oh, it's just the next area, right? It's the next map to go through, which of course does a gross injustice to all of this symbolism that's right there if you stop and think about it for 2 seconds, right? But I'll confess, even I as a player, like if I don't force myself to go back and consider like what is the symbolic content of these various regions, it's easy for them to just stay as these kind of ludic fields for interacting, as opposed to anything that contributes to the broader thematic content of the story, which feels like such a loss to me. So nice to be able to hang out and talk about it more broadly. Oh, Celeste, definitely. Yes, a great example of this. That is one that I have similarly heard many people sing the praises of. I picked up once, but I picked it up in just the wrong context in my life, where I think I was fresh off of a binge of Hollow Knight, and so I thought I would be really in the mood for more gameplay of that kind, but I think it was the exact opposite case where I really needed a break from that. But maybe now that I've fully submerged myself in JRPGs, it'll be a nice different kind of palate cleanser. Yeah, I've heard fantastic things about Celeste in that exact spirit, so it's on the never-ending list. I know you know that. Oh, yes, certainly too big to ignore in that sense, too. Well, two things can be true, right? I think in my head, and again, like I truly got through maybe the like the first level and a half of Celeste, so this is not speaking from my experience so much as just by reputation, but just kind of very hard, unapologetically challenging but fair sort of platforming-oriented games, and Hollow Knight is maybe a bit more Metroidvania than Celeste is in that sense, but it was enough for me to at least conceptually lump them together in my head, and that they similarly dwell on kind of like sort of Sisyphean, Miyazaki-esque themes as I understand it. Yeah. But with enough abstract considerations of mountains, let's get back to the actual mountain. I am going to check up front that we have the battle difficulty on moderate, because speaking of mountains and Sisyphus, I think hard was proving to be a little too hard for me last time. I'm man enough to admit that. If the AIs were a little better, I maintain that I would have a much better job with it, but this is going to be good for now. So let's venture on. Welcome to Friday night. Welcome to Tales of Praxis. What a wonderful way to celebrate the middle of, well, at least for those in the States, a holiday weekend.
Stand guard.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, no spoilers, please, because it is one that I definitely want to play at some point. Yeah, my understanding of it, just based on what people have told me in the past, is that it's a very heartwarming story of the Sisyphean in the sense not of dwelling in the struggle, but in the like Camus myth of Sisyphus sense of what it is to actually transcend that struggle and achieve happiness, despite sort of the apparent futility in your life or your past or things like that. But again, this is just me reading tea leaves from what other gamers have told me about it.
Let's do this.
Fair enough. See, the good thing about having spent enough time together on the stream, though, Pottery, is even if you're talking about a game I haven't played and you don't want to spoil it, even just talking around it and hearing you say something like, is enough for me to know, oh, I really have to play that. And that's good enough for me. Yes, or just play it, exactly. What was that magic combination of words? I can't tell you anything about it, you just need to play it. Yes, it's this hilarious phenomenology turning down the difficulty where it almost feels as if now the enemies are helping me figure out the best ways to defeat them, because it's just so much easier. Arguably too easy. I'm nitpicking, but especially given my experience on Wednesday, I find myself wishing there was like a moderate plus setting, somewhere in between moderate and hard. But this is good for now.
I just heard something.
Yeah, fair enough. There are definitely degrees of being willing to say some things about certain games. Funny how that works.
Look.
You know, that's actually one of the things that is a centerpiece of the work of aesthetics that I'm responding to in this philosophy paper that I'm working on, because the whole central aesthetic experience that this guy T. Nguyen focuses on in his book that I'm writing about is the aesthetics of struggle and what it is to play a game for the sake of experiencing a certain kind of striving activity and pursuing goals that you don't ultimately intrinsically care about. But especially when you think about games through that lens, it can be so important and rewarding to fine-tune the level of difficulty to feeling just right for you, where it's really hard to surmount, but it is surmountable and it doesn't overwhelm you. So it's nice that games like this have difficulty settings at all for that reason, but it's almost like a slippery slope where once they have difficulty settings, you just wish they were infinitely more granular than they actually are.
It's just another stupid animal. No need to panic.
Jesus! Coming in hot.
No! Don't turn your back on him, little bro.
You wouldn't say that about an animal if you'd played Tales of Eternia,
Pascal?
Hubert.
Ow! You okay, little bro?
Stand ready. The harsh climate has turned ordinary monsters into rampaging beasts. They'll charge at the slightest opportunity.
That is a very tight explanation for why the monsters in this particular area would be harder than other ones. So that's definitely how it felt to me, difficulty setting notwithstanding. So I do wonder whether they had some intentionality with making some of the fights in this region harder for this reason that Malik has on the screen here. I wouldn't be surprised knowing the series.
Here it comes. Focus. This will be tight.
Where's Kisara when you need her? Oh, she's in another world. Oh, good timing on those dodges. Didn't like that.
Sorry about that.
This is a very cool conceit for a fight also, because they really did a good job of making this just look like an ordinary enemy but larger. So for him to be a proper boss, it's like this uncanny valley for me, where I expect him to be much easier than he as a matter of fact is. That's been good at together, man. Oh my god, he's gonna have another elf break already. Oh, interesting, Pottery. Do you have an example in mind of like a unifying theme for a particular character's moveset in one of these games? Just trying to wrap my head around the idea you have in mind. I think the unifying theme for Pascal right now is I die a lot. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like almost it's like they do combinatorics with emphasizing the different movesets that they already have with different characters in different ways. Like what I mean, for instance, is like you talk about Judith and her moon arts, right? Like Regal also has moon arts, but I wouldn't say they're as characteristic of him as Judith. And just so, I think there are things like wolf arts and like the earlier games. Like I think Reed has some wolf arts, if memory serves. So I feel like you could probably think your way into explaining why those particular moves would be characteristic in some way of those particular characters. But I feel like you could also read it in terms of them playing around with like, well, we have these different things like demon moves and thrust moves, and what if we like tried to give a character a particular gameplay characteristic by just emphasizing those moves as their like entire combat style, you know what I mean? No, I think there's something to that. That feels right to me. It would be interesting to sit down with all the characters and see like how strong you could make the case overall, but that definitely feels like a Tales thing when you put it that way. It's fucking AIs. Oh my god, they all died! What the hell?
Not looking good. I failed everyone. Sorry about that. Okay, got you. Flash!
I don't know if we're gonna make it with no life bottles now.
Die! Flash! Gotcha! Flash! Die! Slow him down! Slow him down! Death by moonlight!
Now we're out of life bottles, right? It's so close. I would like to see this fight through if I can.
Gotcha! Die! Fall!
I'll defeat you with the gift of rebirth. Light takes
Mow him
the
down!
hands by boon. And fine, rejuvenate.
At least she got the revival spell off.
Gotcha!
I forgot she has a revival spell now. That might help.
Mow him down!
She can competently use it.
Healing
Weapons of fury!
It's over! Ripped to pieces! Stampede strike! Slash! Gotcha! Mow him down! Vanish! Gotcha! Demon bang! Demon bang! Slash!
I'm not done yet.
All right. Well, it wasn't great. I would not describe it as fair and balanced, but a win's a win. Leave it to the Amarcian to not make it through in one piece.
That was a close one.
They're more fierce than I imagined.
Are you all right, Pascal? Oh, yeah, I'm groovy. He just winged me is all.
After all those things I said to you, why did you help me?
Whoa, one of our team was in danger. What did you think I'd do?
Oh, Pascal is Pascal.
Team, you were hurt because of me. I'm sorry, Pascal.
No worries, little bro.
How can you smile after all that? And Captain Malik, you have a right to be angry with me as well.
Even the fiercest warrior can be undone by a single mistake.
I agree.
However, you see your mistakes and own up to them, Hubert. With that maturity, you're unlikely to make the same error in judgment again.
It's like you're teaching me all over again, Captain. I expected you to be far angrier with me.
I've no need to scold a man who's clearly punishing himself.
Regal wants to know your location.
Thank you, Captain Malik.
And besides, no one was hurt. We were lucky. But it's over now, right, Pascal?
Right as rain, Captain.
Are you trying to tell me that you like Tales of Vesperia? Maybe I should sit down and play it sometime. I imagine I might have something to say about it.
No, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to troll through some lists. It really does say something about that game if it is a characteristically Vesperia thing. I feel like I have it in my head as something that's more broadly applicable. But maybe there are just different shades of it in different games. Like the first thing that I went to, since we just played Beyond the Dawn, was all of Alphen's Blazing Sword arts, which sort of seem similarly unifying as, themed techniques to me, but also perhaps have a slightly different flavor. So yeah, it'd be interesting to scrutinize if there are different ways in which different games dig into the same kind of gameplay characterization in different ways or something like that.
I owe you a debt and it must be paid.
Well, that's kind of weird, but you okay?
The only proper response to the Rokuro style, I'm going to repay this debt that I just created, which I owe to you.
How's about you carry Mr. Boar back to the Amarcian Enclave for me?
Perfect. A fair trade.
myself?
What, no good? It's loaded with protein and essential vitamins, so I was hoping to bring it back and share the love.
This boar is really big.
Okay, forget it. In that case, you have to promise to be my friend.
Pascal.
Now come on, we're almost at the Enclave.
So it had a "you and I are friends now" moment. It just was not voiced by Jameson Price, despite Price being in this scene. I'm happy with it all the same. Yeah, I almost like the devil's advocate in me wants to push back and try to like see if we look at the specific arts in something like Tales of Vesperia, like are the wolf arts like ludically unified in terms of like doing a certain kind of DPS or a certain kind of knockdown or something, and similarly with the Moonlight arts, like is there more connecting them in terms of their gameplay impact than just the thematic content in terms of background or naming or something like that? I don't know. But I think there are interesting questions to ask, definitely. Yeah, which is more of a Renin thing, right? Because all of the the Renin gear, such as the special armor and weapons that we got in Beyond the Dawn, also had Latin names. Remember, we did the decoding of that. And then Vesperia also cuts both ways too, because I was just thinking like you could talk about the unique characterization in terms of theming of particular characters' arts with their own distinctive names and such. But then, of course, like we've talked about before, and I talk about in my article, like there's also the like contrary position of the very same art manifested in different ways according to the underlying techniques and background according to which it was cultivated, like Flynn versus Yuri versus Rapide. You think it overuses it? I know. I feel like, maybe at this point, using Latin as a trope, but like we were talking about with like Latin versus like Greek and Vesperia versus some of the invented languages like Melnyx in Tales of Eternia, or the Phonic language. Is it just called? I forget the name of the language in Tales of the Abyss. But I feel like some kind of unifying underlying language can be really useful and productive for lore. I'm usually a fan of how the Tales games deploy it. I finally told the other Turtles about this place. Give me 15 more life bottles. Oh my god, it's exhausting. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think it's one of those things where I feel like, especially among some JRPGs, it's easy to get frustrated with what has become a cliche amongst gaming communities at this point, that they just pick a name from some kind of mythic tradition or something that sounds esoteric on the supposition that it sounds cool and is edgy or inscrutable or something like that. But that was part of what got my goat about Tales of the Abyss, was the idea that, I mean, if you look online in some of the conversations about it, that's how some of the people think about the Kabbalistic names in it. And so that was part of what I was pushing back against, saying like, well, no, if you look further into it, those are like key clues and directions to the overall like story that it's trying to tell and the structure that undergirds its world and its fiction. So I think for me, that's a long-winded way of saying it comes down to the question of, regardless of what naming conventions and languages that you use, do they point to some further like thematic content or unifying way of reading the game as a whole? when it comes down to Latin and Tales of Arise. I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but I feel like that would be my way into trying to answer the question of like, is it warranted or not in terms of the reading of the game, you know? Well, right, but also like again, if it's like the syntax or semantics for like the either the Renans or just like some interpretation of like the will of the astral spirit of Rena or some like the communication between the Helganquil and the Renans. Like I feel like there are interesting ways you could cash it out if you wanted to. I can't think of anything in the game off the top of my head that sort of supports or explains it, which might be part of the frustration. Like, I feel like especially in a Tales game, and especially in one that gives you background in the way that Tales of Arise does, we could skirt this problem simply if they had some further context or background in the world, sort of explaining like the genesis of language on Rena, which would totally be in keeping with the sorts of explanations that are offered for similar things in other entries in the series. But we don't really get that to my recollection. I should have given that to Sophie, I wasn't thinking. I can put it on her tunic. Good. I think that's adequate for now. Still have a little bit of gold. Have all the life bottles. Yeah, good enough. Come agains. Oh, can we turtles transport back to town because we got the materials for that one request at the inn. So I'd like to do that if we can. Yeah, awesome. All right, let's do that. All aboard. Yeah, I think that's part of why, like, the more I'm thinking about it, the more my version of the frustration is with the different linguistic, like, branches of the tree that they have going on in Tales of Arise. That, to me, is what makes the game cry out for an explanation of how language evolved and is interrelated in the game, and we don't get that. Like the Helganquil nomenclature for things like their mausoleums and, you know, Havrecht 30, whatever its name is, those are, at least as far as I know, certainly not Latin. And so I fil like that invites some kind of explanation that we don't get in terms of how we get from that language to this other language to, you know, English or the common tongue or whatever you want to call it down on Dana. Right, yes, exactly. Yeah, I suppose if one really wanted to be generous, one could run a version of the argument that we talked about back when we were doing Beyond the Dawn in terms of aspects of the world and cultural history that have undergone erasure in one way or another, which is certainly a theme in Tales of Arise. If, you know, either the Renans don't have a good understanding of their own history, and maybe that's part of the point, or maybe they just, by virtue of their relationship and subordinates to the great astral spirit of Rena, don't really have like a conscious understanding of the evolution of their own means of communication. I feel like there's a version of that argument that you could mount if you wanted to, but while that would explain, I don't think it would remove the frustration from the aspect of the gameplay experience and absorbing the world. If anything, it might just give you some footholds into at least having a way of being satisfied with that frustration. Thanks to you, my store is up and running. Come by any time. I've got a wide selection to choose from. Yeah, I get it in terms of the barrier to entry thing. I'm of the mind where I think there there are contexts within which like that inscrutability can be narratively meaningful, but I think especially like I think we talked about this before in terms of like techno fantasy jargon, especially like walk into a JRPG and when it immediately dumps a million terms onto you that are like meaningless in any real language, and you feel like you have to like build this Rolodex of those concepts in your head right away in order to follow along at all. Sometimes I think if the game is well put together, that disorientation can be part of what it's trying to bring about in your experience as a player, and I can appreciate that, but it definitely creates a kind of barrier to entry, and I think in many players an unwillingness to give the game a chance, which is too bad.
You're strong, Asbel.
Not at all.
You're really coming into your own.
He doesn't agree.
Oh, we got an omelet. Fantastic. Yeah, the party is pretty unevenly leveled. It's a bit frustrating. Yeah, for sure. I hear you. Oh, yes, I have to talk to the turtles to use the transport. I was trying to get to the actual transport animal itself. Stupid Aaron. There we go. All right, and we're off. It is interesting. I was reflecting on this too. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other immediate examples of towns in JRPGs that become hostile with enemies coming after you. And the way that's happened in Zavhert is really interesting. And talking about that theme of safety that's been coming up over and over again in Tales of Graces, it makes a place that typically gamers are trained to have coded in their heads as safe, you know, a town in the middle of a JRPG, and it's the kind of place where there are only conversations with NPCs and shops and things like that that don't invite conflict. And now suddenly it's a war zone with that requirement for like combat preparation on the part of the player. Really interesting way to unexpectedly shift the context in a similar way to what we were talking about with Richard showing up at the Valkanus Creus and Strata. All right, to the Enclave. Buckle up, Buckaroo. Oh, I'm so excited. Learning about the deep past of a JRPG world. Oh yeah, look at that.
This is the Amarcian Enclave? I've never seen anything like it.
Oh, I hope it wasn't an issue on my end. The OBS interface seems to be okay. Hopefully it's nothing glitchy. Yeah, I was just saying I was appreciating the unusual aspect in which Zavhert goes from being like a typical JRPG town to something that antagonizes the party, because usually, you know, you just take it as a player that towns are kind of safe zones in your navigation where the characters rest and have conversations and do side quests, but it's not a place where fighting is even part of the equation. And so it just struck me as something that's pretty unusual, and I couldn't think of as happening in any of the other Tales games that I've played as part of Tales of Praxis, that the context is turned on its head with enemies directly attacking the party there and making you reconceive of what it is to relate to this town, in the same way that the context kind of unexpectedly shifts with the Valkanus Creus and Strata, where you go there for one reason and suddenly Richard is there and it's a completely different situation.
I grew up in Fendel, and I never even knew this place existed.
Yeah, we've been helping Fendel here and there for a while, but we have to keep it all shh. Anyway, let's head over to my place first. Come on.
Pascal's house, in the middle of the metaphysical void. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if this is what you were thinking of, Pottery, but I can certainly think of a decent number of examples where, like, enemies such as monsters will, during specific story events, infiltrate a town. And so, you know, the whole conceit of that event in the story is the party has to fight back against them. But the idea that it just becomes, like, the normal status of the town, that there are random encounters with enemies that are antagonized people wandering around and hunting down the player, that feels much less common to me. I can't think of a lot of examples of that. Sure, yeah, like Isalia, like when there are events of enemies confronting a town and then the character gets banished or the town is destroyed, like Lewin or something like that. Yeah. Not so much that the town remains active yet with hostile elements inside of it. And hostile not to the town, but hostile just to the player's party. I think that's part of what strikes me as distinctive as well. It's a scrap of paper. The Overseer's true name is the key. All right. I'll have to keep an eye out for the true name of the Overseer. Was Pascal the Overseer? I don't remember. Visitors from the world below. Below? Oh. Sneaky game. The last ruins we went to were underground, so I was assuming we had warped underground. That seems not to be the case. You don't see that, Pascal? Is that really you? How the heck are you? Hello, outsiders. You'll find shops to the left, homes to the right, and the Overseer at the bottom of the stairs. Have clearer directions ever been given? It's our job as Amarcians to watch over this world. At least that's what my great-grandmother said when I was a kid. It's weird she called it a job. I mean, it's more of a duty or a mission or something, right? I'm tired of being bored, aren't you? Nothing around here really lights my fire. Finally, I decided to do something about it. It's called Shot Cube. Minigame? Oh no! I'll try it once and then probably give up right away. Move the cubes from the edge of the ice field into the center frame. If you fail to move all the cubes to the center frame, you lose. Likewise, if a cube goes falling off, you lose. This is a mini-game version of a puzzle that you have to do in the proper story in Tales of Eternia. Well, that wasn't so bad. I'm sure it won't get any harder than that. Already, it's getting complicated. Oh, a ruined shot staff. All right. Already we're winning fabulous prizes. Now this is the kind of minigame where I wouldn't go so far as to say I enjoy it, but it's the kind where it's at least possible for me to get into a sort of meditative and cathartic flow state and enjoy working through the puzzles. Which, if you know me, you know is quite an endorsement when it comes to a minigame. Probably from the 10,000 hours I put in on Tales of Symphonia block puzzles as a kid. New Game Plusing that beautiful work 1,000 times. It's funny how certain puzzles or just moments in games can become so seared in your head if you do them a lot, or if they have formative places in your gaming experience. Like, I think I mentioned my buddy Matt, who will be here in a few weeks, and surely will be on the stream, is working through his very first ever Dark Souls run, which is just a pure joy to me. And he messaged me today saying, "Oh, I got through the catacombs, and I was really excited, and I tried to go on to the next area, and I immediately fell off the map into the darkness." And I smiled because just that description so vividly called to my mind the exact screen and cliff and pitfall that he was talking about, because I had fallen off of it so many times in my own playthroughs over the years. It's a nice way of accessing, I suppose, empathy, masochistic empathy with other players when you've been through the same distinct agony in particular moments in a game. No, it's no warehouse. There's no doubt about that. Oh yeah, many an adventure in the Abyss warehouses too. Talk about a mini game theme that just plays on a loop inside my head forever. No, Dark Souls 1, the first one, on the way to Nito. A common refrain in all the Dark Souls games, though. Falling into darkness. Now we're getting a little challenging. I think I said this before, but this is my first experience of it in this run. I don't know if it's an interesting way in which these puzzles work, or if it's just an artifact of how my mind works, but I do feel like it's the kind of puzzle where truly, like, there's a flow state I can access where, like, I couldn't even tell you how I solve the things, and the more I try to actively think about it, the more I tie myself into knots. But if I just let myself go by intuition, it's pretty easy to wrap my head around which moves feel right. I think there's a certain magic to building a puzzle like that. Serve it up. DJ. Serve it up. I know, I'm excited to see how vividly I remember this puzzle for all of the warnings, let's say, you've given about it. And all of the mutual bemoaning between you and Grail. Oh, did I mess up? I might have messed up. I think I did. That's annoying. Oh, maybe? No. Yeah. No, I think I did. Oh, that's very annoying. To retry that one. It's the last one, I think. On this stage. No, I think I locked myself into the wrong solution. I'm not even sure where I did it though, which is annoying. I think I started at the top last time, so I'm going to try starting at this point this time. This one has to go here, I think. See, this is what I'm talking about. Now I feel like I've thought about it too much and I'm tying myself into knots over it. Fuck. I'm gonna just try starting at the bottom next time. That might be the trick. So this is gonna be the exact same thing. Because this one has to go down, so there has to be something to catch it. Which means we want something, I think, in those two bottom grids first. Oh! Bonsai! See, sometimes you just have to stare at it for a minute and a half. Satisfying once you get it, though. It's not like it makes you stare at it for 45 minutes or something before it comes together. Platinum shot stuff. Very cool. Right. This is a worthy diversion. Solved them so easily. You sure are something, Pascal. Yeah, and speaking of difficulty, that was a nice balance of difficulty too, with Pascal being the focal character for it to really make you feel as if she is as smart as she's meant to be in the game. Ludo-narrative consonance, as one might say. Some of those puzzles are really hard to clear unless you think through them logically. Or intuitively. I would say intuitively. I know, I just thought of a name that's perfect for you. I'm thinking up more difficult challenges right now. I'll try to have them ready soon. Look forward to them. Puzzle Cracker. Alright. Ooh, so much better. I love an upgrade. But will it keep her from constantly dying in battle immediately? Is it this one? No, that's Devotee of Gun and Glyph. Puzzle Cracker. No matter the puzzle, she can solve it in a snap. Her logic skills are second to none. Cyandini. That's the name of the water glyph, right? Is it an additional art for channeling that spirit? Let's try it out. Alright, on we go.
Mount Zavhert is cold and in the middle of nowhere. Why in the world would the Amarcians live here?
You know, good question. I'm not sure. But I mean, does anybody know why their hometowns are where they are?
No, I guess not.
That's a good point.
They used to call Mount Zavhert Kulumin, which means the transplanted land. As children, we were taught to never approach it, so I'm unfamiliar with the area.
Perhaps the warning originates from an Amarcian desire to protect their privacy from the local villagers. Captain, even if kids didn't know the Enclave was here, that warning should have raised some eyebrows.
It does seem pretty obvious in retrospect.
But they were only kids. They didn't know any better. Also not as obvious as something being literally named the Forbidden Zone. Lenegus! Is that a chocolate fountain? It is a chocolate fountain! The water isn't brown, it's actually chocolate. Explanation, please! Huh? You want to know why we built a big chocolate fountain? Maybe you should ask your friend about that. Pascal, you got some splaining to do, girl. I think your entire race that's supposed to be extinct has some explaining to do. I'm so happy to be here. Our lodgings are simple, but as long as that's not a problem, you're welcome to stay. Yeah, stay on what? The hexagons? Are those the beds? I have a few follow-up questions. With the fountain? Like, can we change it to Pascal? Yeah, let me check. Okay, we're totally out of Emperor's Claws. That is unacceptable, and I'm not budging until we get some more. There you go. Woo, thanks, pal. It's getting tired of not budging. Oh, those Emperor's Claws you brought were first rate. Excellent. All right. That's a good point. Yeah, I keep forgetting that they put such care into having different conversations available based on who's the leader. And this does seem like an obvious place to have Pascal. Oh, not for that one, but in general. Have you already met the Overseer? If not, I would highly urge you to do so. There's a secret collection of knowledge in this enclave that only she knows about. Ooh! Secret lore? Smells like Miorzo. Smells like the storyteller keeping the lore of the Karlon War. Smells like just a good historical excavation in a Tales game. Fendel's government asked the Amarcians for help with their Creus research. One mistake with Creus research could be the death of us all, but the Overseer still agreed to help. Even we haven't lived here forever. Apparently, the Amarcians once made their home in Strata. That was a long time ago. Living in a place like this, it's hard to get the younger generation to carry on the Amarcians' job. Again, talking about it as a job as opposed to a duty. Glad we spoke to that other NPC that really foregrounded the curiosity of that nomenclature for me. Some of them have gone down the mountain to Zavhert. Oh, is there something there? No, it must have just been the prompt to talk to the man. Alright, I think we got a few better weapons. Oh, yes, my goodness. I think this is part of my problem. I think that I leaned too much into upgrading the existing weapons, and that led me to overlook the fact that better weapons also have better CC, which I think is worth prioritizing at this point. So I think part of the issue is that the characters are just running out of gas in battle. I feel better now. I'm gonna save in case we lose that. It's our job as Amarcians to watch over this world. Yo, I spoke to you already. I was very grateful for what you said, and then we moved on. Yeah, they all seem to have pretty similar appearances to Pascal too, don't they? Same gene pool or bloodline as the glyphs suggested to us. We Amarcians live for technology. Other engineers simply can't compare. Okay, let's see how many materials we have to sell. I don't think we have more sellables to craft, but we have some that I haven't gotten rid of yet. Well, just the one, but that's something. Huh, everything is so expensive. Oh well. We just upgraded everyone's kit a little, so I think that will help. The Enclave was constructed by linking together the summits of multiple mountains. That's interesting. Oh, it just puts me in mind of, what is it called? Tri-Peak Mountain or something like that in Xenoblade Chronicles on the Bionis. One of the iconic endgame areas that's very hard to find with a very hard side quest. Is something about the merging of 3 mountaintops. Well, you know, if you've already got Mount Sinai in there, then throw in some of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's all in there. Wave your hands. You can dig something out. Okay, so those were the shops, and down here is where the Overseer is. I don't know if we'll be able to see him before going to Pascal's place. Nope. I don't think Grail's here, but Grail, if you're watching the VOD, that was a good hour and 15 minutes to the first Xenoblade Chronicles reference. It's easier to forestall it when it's just me. Whoa there! Oh, hey, what's this? I've learned her real name. Her name is Gauss. Ah, I remember that. Got Pascal and Gauss. Yeah, all of these allusions to mathematicians. I was also thinking, of course, of the philosophically renowned Pascal's wager, the idea that if the penalty for not believing in God is eternal damnation, and the reward is eternal life or happiness, or however you want to cash it out, that it is rational as a bet as much as anything else to believe in God and have faith out of your own self-interest. How much that'll factor into Pascal, I'm still not sure, but it's been in the back of my mind. Oh, Grail, I'm delighted. Welcome. I'm laughing because literally maybe like 90 seconds before you showed up, I made the first Xenoblade Chronicles reference, and so I thought of you and called it out on the stream. So I must have inadvertently summoned you. Pleasure to see you back, my friend. Welcome. We're just exploring the Amarcian Enclave, so it's been a fun but slow adventure so far. You haven't missed too much. But we're thinking about the symbology of mountains in storytelling more broadly, but especially in the Tales series. So it's been a fun night for that. Oh, Pascal sure did love her big sister Fourier. Also a mathematician, I think. Maybe a physicist? I knew at one point. Mathematician and physicist. Well, most of those old thinkers were. Yes, known for the Fourier transform, which transforms the signals between two different domains, such as transforming signal from frequency domain to time domain, or vice versa. It was not very long. It was not. It was only like 20 minutes or something. Mostly just reflecting on, yeah, the symbolism of mountains. It's true, Woman! That's a real name! I know someone named Woman! No, obviously I know what you mean. It's interesting though. It's because one feels as if the Tales franchise typically draws more on mythological names than things like science and technology, but again, having just played Tales of Eternia, like science and astronomy looms so large in that. Like one of the main figures in the game is named after like a renowned, I think early 20th century astronomer. Oh, I'm blanking on the name. But one of those, it'll come to me in a second once I let it go. So yeah, and nice in that, in the context of the various pools from which Tales draws, to kind of like add science and technology and engineering into the mythology of these worlds. Gives it a very cool vibe, I would say. How sad for Pascal to return home after all this time and still not be able to see her. Where's Fourier? Oh, she's left the village. You didn't see her. I heard she went to Zavhert. Oh, I wonder whether she's involved in their machinations for that plan they weren't talking about. Seems to be the implication, since the Amarcians here said that the Fendelian government enlisted their help in figuring out what to do about Krios. I want to use Amarcian technology to invent things that help people. A noble effort. What about a hula hoop that spins itself? Is that helpful? Noble effort, but the execution could use a little bit of work, my friend. Meow. The androgynous-looking cat seems to want fish. No. Gauss. As of the distribution. Book of Acquisition. Makes it easier to acquire shards from enemies. Yes, please. That's an instant slot. Please and thank you. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was as simple as they wanted the allusions to notable contributions to science and engineering, and sadly, most of the ones that are known in popular consciousness, all the more so a few years ago when this was published, were from men as opposed to women. That would be my gut, at least, without thinking about it further. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and I would be refreshed and inspired to see a game that did a similar kind of spirit, but focused on female scientists in the next few years. Curie was more on, like, she was more on the biology side, though, right? Wasn't she? I feel like these are more of, like, engineers and mathematicians. It's been a while since I've done my history of science. A physicist, also. Oh, there you know. There you go. Oh, yeah, pioneering research on radioactivity. I don't know who I was thinking of. I think I was thinking of someone else. Well, here. Even if this game was focused on the scientific achievements of well-known male thinkers and engineers. I can at least do everyone the benefit of dropping Mary Curie's Wikipedia page in the chat at Pottery's thoughtful suggestion. So if you want to learn about a very impactful female thinker and physicist, go ahead and do that. Yeah, actually, one of my favorite courses that I took in undergrad was a course with one of my favorite professors, a philosopher of Descartes, and it was all about, it was called Descartes and His Critics, and so it was a lot of focusing on Cartesian philosophy and dualism and things like that, but the whole second half of the course was focused on critiques of Descartes and correspondence between Descartes and various female philosophers of the time, because as it turns out, there were several who were very actively engaged with the same issues as he was, but just because of sort of the politics and what it took to be recognized within the canon, it's only within the past 10 or 20 years that they've really gotten any amount of the recognition that they always deserved. So it really added an interesting texture and background context to a lot of the ideas that those philosophers wrestle with.
My room. It's
Just on the symbology of mountains, Grail. In a very tight nutshell, I was basically just thinking about mountains coming off of the model of Mount Sinai and the idea of God conveying these artifacts with a particular foundational relationship to the spiritual nature of the world on the mountain. And I was thinking about it in relation to the conversation that you and I actually had a while ago about the vertical symbology of these worlds, with what is the difference between being on the ground and traveling in the air, and the suspended fortresses of endgame antagonists. And so I was thinking about mountains as this kind of interesting liminal space where people seek spirituality while remaining grounded, and oftentimes, especially in the Tales games, are apt to discover artifacts that tie into the spiritual history of the world. If you think about things like the Amarcian Enclave here, or the planetary score in Mount Zalejo, or I had another example. Mount Killerhouse as the point of access to the Four Empyreans in the Desolation, stuff like that. So, in a nutshell, that was the short of it.
It's clean!
How could this be?
You call this clean?
Is this a trash dump? Sophie! This is not cool! You don't just go cleaning up people's rooms when they've only been gone for a second!
Pascal had been gone for 13 years.
When were you last here, Pascal?
I don't know, about 3 years ago?
Not as bad, but still.
I'm not sure you can really complain if you've been gone that long.
I knew it! Someone yoinked all my Creus notes! So someone's been using your research to help Fendel with their experiment.
Does their name start with F and end in Aurier?
Yeah, but who? Hey, we should ask the Overseer. She's gotta know something.
The Overseer? Is that your leader?
Yep, she's old. Super old. She's so old she doesn't even know how old she is.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, enough about that. Let's go see her.
I would also say, just thinking more about the gender dynamics of this, and I will always be the first to say, gender studies is not my area of focus or expertise, so, straight white cis man, take it with a grain of salt. But I do think, from a lay perspective, this just came to me because I hadn't realized, because there hadn't been anything in the game that said the Overseer was also a woman. I feel like you could do a reading of Tales of Graces, since it seems like all of the characters who are named in Amarcia, that we've seen so far, at least, Pascal and Fourier and Gauss, they're all women who are named after these male thinkers. I think there's a fair reading that you could try to advance of the game as subversive, reconceiving of these male influences as female characters in the world, and exploring what it would take to, have a society that accepts that, and why it might be hard or unintuitive for us to. I could see a reading of it as cool and progressive in that light. Sheena's Carta! Oh, speaking of great female characters, the people of Mizuho were chased from this land. Milk, excellent. It's a nutritional 10 out of 10. Got milk? Robopad! Love it.
What should I make for dinner tonight? Huh? Okay, so if we have curry again, it'll look like I'm playing favorites with Asbel. What about you, Sophie? Do you think we should have crablets again? Sharia? That animal...
Can't you though, Grail? That's kind of their MO. Be chased from everywhere. Even places in other worlds. Especially places in other worlds.
Captain! Perfect timing. How about I let you choose the menu for tonight? Pick your favorite. Anything you like.
How about sea bream porridge?
All right, I'll have to look for a recipe. I should have known you'd pick something old-fashioned.
Oh?
I mean because, you have refined tastes, right?
Why ask me?
I'm old. To Gauss. This is another great music track. And the way in which it's so distanced from the musical scores of the rest of the world really makes one feel as though one is in a place out of time and space. I did get the skip by the fountain, yep. And we did the request at the inn. Then I was nervous about going forward without you, buddy, and your guidance from the guide, but I think we've been keeping up with it decently.
Overseer! Hey, are you there?
And we went back and returned the raw materials in Zavhert as well.
You don't have to shout. We can hear you just fine.
Oui.
Hey, Poisson! Long time no see!
Poisson!
Pascal, you know it's against the rules to bring outsiders here.
See another woman named after a male thinker.
Come on, don't be like that. Is the overseer here? I gotta ask her some stuff.
I think, right? Poisson is actually one I also have to look at. Yes. Simeon Poisson. Mathematician and physicist who worked on statistics, complex analysis, partial differential equations, the calculus of variations, analytical mechanics, electricity and magnetism, thermodynamics, elasticity, and fluid mechanics back in the day when basically every thinker in any field was a philosopher who worked on every issue and every subdomain. Oh, I love it. Who needs to specialize? Specialize in everything. That's always an option. Now for the Poisson distribution, which is a discrete probability distribution.
The overseer has long since stopped speaking with others.
Yes, very cool hair design on all of them. I wonder, as we learn more about the Amarcians, if there'll be an explanation for that. It seems to be the kind of physical trait that cries out for explanation. Wow, Friday night, at least for me. Maybe something to do with their attunement to Elith, based on the way in which Pascal is able to form these pacts with the glyphs.
If you wish to talk to her, you must do so through me. Okay, sure. It'll be good practice, since you're eventually gonna be the next overseer. So, can we get into the Archive of Wisdom?
Oh, please. Let it be a library with books we can read. I'm begging you.
The archive's been around for centuries. It's basically a big hall where we store everything we've ever learned.
Oh, that is a fun fact, pottery. Is it because it's based on like a Gaussian distribution in one way or another? I would imagine it must be, right? Ah, Grail. You know we don't accept that explanation here. We go for a much more complicated explanation, and then we say at the end, and that's why it's cool.
It's crammed full of totally awesome stuff, and I've been wanting to check it out for a while.
The Overseer says that none but herself may enter the Archive of Wisdom.
Yeah, I know what she's gonna say.
Makes sense.
I want you to let us in. Jeez, don't be so uptight.
I am unable to cope with it. But I'm also the guy who seriously contemplated doing a stream of the script that's provided in the collector's edition of Nier Replicant, which is just all of the dialogue and events in the game in written form, and just wanted to do a read along over Twitch. So I'm willing to accept that I'm a little outside of the mainstream style. But more of us ought to be. That's where all the action is.
Maybe you're not uptight enough, Pascal.
Poisson, did you know Fendel is running experiments on the Valkanus?
There you go. And Baldur's Gate 3 is certainly not outside the mainstream, so there's hope yet. There's hope. Yeah, I'm still keeping it in my back pocket. I feel like it would be fun to dole out at some point. Just gotta have the right context for it. Yeah, maybe April Fool's is a good idea.
Of course. What of it?
What of it? If we don't put a stop to him ASAP, things are gonna get really bad really fast.
The Overseer and I were informed that everything is proceeding just fine.
Poisson, listen. I'm pretty sure they're using my old research.
You wouldn't call it mainstream, Grail? I feel like everyone I know is losing their mind over Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe if you want to say not made for the mainstream, but then in that case, like, again, I have not played it, but just based on the reception of it that I've seen, it feels like sort of something that's delightfully unexpected in the way that Elden Ring was, where, like, at face value, you wouldn't expect a Miyazaki game to be so popularly received, but there it is, and everyone's playing it, you know what I mean? Which then I would say has it de facto in the mainstream, even if it wasn't designed as such. Yeah, that feels right, the more we're talking about it.
I stopped working on that research because I couldn't get it to work. Extracting Eleth was doable, but once the output reached a certain rate, things would get all out of control. If they use that on the Valkanus, it's gonna be totally catastrophic.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what triggers that kind of spark.
The Overseer says we have no authority to interfere in such matters.
It is so fun when something that is so artistically pointed and has direction in a sense that you would think would divert people from it becomes just widely popular and a kind of cultural moment. I suppose something similar to what happened with, like maybe Barbie and Oppenheimer, like that. I still haven't seen either of those, I'll admit, but that feels kind of similar. Or Joker, like Joker is a very dark in a niche way kind of movie, but it also totally captured the popular opinion for a moment there.
Okay. Then tell me who's doing the experimenting and I'll talk to him myself. Heck, it's probably the same person who took my research in the first place.
Your sister is in charge of the project.
Ah, saw that coming a mile away.
Fourier? I should have guessed.
You really should have,
So
girl.
is she
That's on
here or
you.
what?
No, she left some time ago and is currently operating her own laboratory.
No kidding. Well, how's about you tell me where it is and I'll go chat her up.
As it stands now, I cannot.
Did you see a sign on your way up from Zavhert where the road splits in two? If you take the other path
Ah.
from there, you'll find Fourier's laboratory at the end.
The place into which we stumbled by mistake.
Nice. Thanks, Poisson. Sorry, guys, but I gotta run down to that lab and see what's going on.
We'll go as well. It sounds pretty serious.
You think so? I mean, I waffled because, again, I haven't seen them and I don't have strong intuitions on it, Pottery, but, like, 3-hour biopic. That's the kind of thing that intuitively, again, at face value, I would not say is categorically up everyone's alley or mainstream in the way that, say, a Marvel movie or something is, you know? And Barbie, something that in a similar spirit, at least from my understanding of it, is very like tongue-in-cheek and subversive and self-aware. Maybe that's just becoming mainstream these days, like the course of mainstream has shifted, but they strike me as things that when I heard all the hype around them, it was something that felt similarly unexpectedly catalyzed in the way that we're talking about with Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring.
Besides, if this leads to the Valkanus, it will eventually lead us to Richard. It makes sense for everyone.
Aw, thanks, you guys. All right, let's hit the road.
The Amarcians are people possessing technology unlike that of anywhere else in the world. Some say we're responsible for the various ruins in this world, but I don't know the details. Yeah, I think we were talking about that on the stream earlier this week, and I know I talked about it on the podcast with Dan over the weekend. The idea that something like Tales of Arise, even if you don't want to call it mainstream, I think that's kind of beside the point, but in terms of accessibility and kind of leaning into familiar design standards for like just the way in which modern games are built, it can be a good way into the series for people who would not antecedently be interested, but then through something that is sufficiently similar to other things that they know and love can get interested in the nuances and niches of the overall Tales series. I wonder if there's a meaningful distinction too between like a name being well known and a name being mainstream. And I say that because I would agree with you, Pottery. And to be clear, I am quite a fan of Christopher Nolan, but I find myself wondering, like, just because he's known, does that entail that his work is mainstream? Because I feel like, again, just from my circles, many people know Nolan mostly by his reputation for being very convoluted and concerned with his own style in a way that is off-putting and not very fun to watch. And again, for someone like me, I have a lot of fun with his work. I enjoy it. But I feel like that points to maybe an interesting conceptual distinction between like someone's work being known and something being seen as accessible or mainstream. Like I think many auteurs are known by virtue of being inaccessible or, you know, telling very heavily stylized stories that that are known exactly because of the ways in which they deviate from the mainstream. I feel like some people might say similar things about someone like Kojima or Yoko Taro as well in like the gaming world, you know? Or Miyazaki for that matter. At least Miyazaki pre-Elden Ring, which points back to Elden Ring as an interesting phenomenon. Oh man, what am I gonna do? Hey man, turn that frown upside down. What's wrong? Can we help? Well, I was asked to collect a certain type of sample, but I'm afraid it's a bit more than I can handle. How so? Well, I just need to deliver the core parts that can be reused in other machines. I'm sure I could handle it if Pascal were to help. What? Me? Aw, come on. Is there a specific reason you can't collect the samples? Yeah, well, I think you'll understand better when you get there. I posted the request, so have a look before you head out. So maybe a better way to point at what I'm trying to talk about, Pottery, because I think that's just pointing back to the question that I wanted to raise, is maybe like rephrasing mainstream as something as like, is there a difference between a work being known and a work being accessible? Because again, like, I would certainly not dispute that most gamers probably know at least a little bit about Metal Gear Solid, but I also feel like at least certain aspects of the Metal Gear series and certain sections of gamers think of those games as pretty hard to access, either because of like the complexity of the plot over the multiple games, or some of the particular twists and turns of the experience of the games, or things like that. So again, maybe it's not that interesting of a distinction, but I feel like the more we're thinking about it, the more I feel like there's maybe an interesting distinction between like a work being known and nominally understood by the masses, and a work being something that the masses recognize as something with which they could easily engage. I don't know. I mean, if you say Final Fantasy as just like a name that everyone knows, sure. But I think Final Fantasy, like, I could raise the same issue in terms of how I think about Final Fantasy. Like, is some of Final Fantasy mainstream? Sure. Something like Final Fantasy 16, by dint of many of the arguments that Grail was making in terms of Tales of Arise, certainly seems mainstream. But, I think about some of the ways in which people talk about something like I wanted to use the transport. Some of the ways people talk about like the Final Fantasy VII series. So everything from like Crisis Core to Advent Children to Dirge of Cerberus to Remake. And I think oftentimes, like, again, while people are nominally aware of that, they recoil at it because they feel as if for one reason or another it's inaccessible. Like, it's too complicated, there's too much material, it's hard to square all the different entries. So I feel like the more you look at the different texture of the Final Fantasy series, the more it sharpens my intuition that there is perhaps a distinction there. Oh, well, since you got the last word before you dipped out, I clearly believe you now, Padre, because that's how arguments work. This is just a little microcosm of the bone that I and other philosophers of games oftentimes pick about a term like immersion, by the way. It's not as if there aren't interesting concepts and experiences that fall under the idea of immersiveness. It's just that there are too many separable phenomena that you can be referring to when you talk about a game as immersive. And there are so many different ideas of what that can mean, and the epistemic and phenomenological stance it can dictate between the player and a game, that it's almost meaningless to use the term because it's so multiply ambiguous. That's all I was trying to say about mainstream. This idea that because we're picking apart these different, perhaps subordinate, perhaps constitutive concepts, whatever you want to call it, of things like a work being known versus a work being accessible, I think, mainstream, while I haven't thought about it in this way before, strikes me as though it could be a very similar sort of buzzword, in the sense of not being sufficiently well defined to be intuitively meaningful to people in terms of what it is for a game to be mainstream. Yeah, I forgot where we were going, so we'll have to head back up the trail, but that's not that far.
Damn it. Now it will appear as though I've been wrong the entire time.
Hey there, little bro. What you thinking about?
Oh, nothing worth discussing.
Come on, Hubert, don't be that way. You and Pascal are friends.
You and Pascal are friends now!
I never agreed to that.
No, I'm not going to stop quoting that
We
line.
grew up
You
in
can't
different
stop me.
environments. I don't know what our father taught you, but my foster father instructed me never to trust lightly.
That doesn't matter. You should still remember exactly what Dad taught us. He taught us to respect our companions. I don't know how you were raised once you left, but you're still my brother, Hubert. We still share some of the same values.
How can you be that way? You don't criticize or mistrust or try to pin blame. How are you able to believe in me at all?
'Cause you're friends?
We're brothers.
That's an interesting little microcosm, that moment, too, because thinking about the idea of how entangled the concepts of friendship and family can be, speaking of entangled concepts that are separable, right? There's every reason to believe that there was no deep sense in which Hubert and Asbel were really brothers growing up, because of the way in which Hubert was discounted by the family and felt isolated by Asbel's friend group and everything like that. And so the idea that for them now to build a firm concept of brotherhood between them and that kind of bond, they have to start from friendship, and that actually by doing that more fundamental act of befriending each other, they can then have a firmer basis for developing a sense of family. I think that's a really illuminating and telling little tableau of what the game might be trying to drive at in terms of the utility of friendship and how we can use it to form bonds with people and understand our bonds with people.
Let's keep moving.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving, Grail? Did you make any fun gaming or otherwise purchases for Black Friday? Was saying earlier, I'm always overwhelmed by the amount of sales that happen on PSN. I don't even know where to begin. I think I bought some game for $5 that's usually like 50 or 60. I literally don't even remember what game it was, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. I might have to see if I can just find the receipt because I'm curious of what it was actually. What did I buy? It's just such an outrageous sale I felt obligated to. Oh, it was Dragon's Dogma. One that I've heard tell of many, many times but never gotten around to. The 2017 one. Which is still usually going for, I think, like 30 or 40 bucks at least, but it was on a Black Friday sale for $5. So I said, all right, time to get that.
Let's get this underway.
Take this!
Even in battle, it's important to pay your respects.
Okay,
Not like that.
this?
No, never mind.
Ah, bummer. I hope it gets there soon.
What? Sorry about that. Be gone! It's over! Ripped to pieces!
I heard from Dan that the new release of the Mario RPG is also very, very fun, so that's on my list. I imagine it's going to be a joy at some point. When I'm worn out on other JRPGs, I'll just switch to a Mario one. That'll be enough of a change.
Each new discovery brings us one step closer.
Oh, preaching to the choir, my friend. I've been heads down on this paper I've been talking about, and my reward once I'm done with that is to turn around and do a million other things, as you know. But hey, life is just a JRPG resource management puzzle of making sure that you're allocating points to fun and worthwhile projects, right? That's all it comes down to. As long as you're busy with good stuff, it can be a positive state, I reckon. I overwatered myself in preparation for this stream, so I'm going to take a brief little intermission just to get myself reset for the next hour here. So it'll say 5 minutes, but I imagine I'll circle back in 2 or so on this fine Friday evening. Don't touch that dial. Well, I regret to inform you that during that break, sadly, I was forced to call the police because Grail touched the dial when I very explicitly asked him not to. So they're on their way to your home, buddy. Gonna take you in for some questioning. Hope you don't mind. You brought it on yourself, so I will not apologize. I was polite enough to warn you, so you should be thanking me, really.
No idea Fourier's laboratory would be so huge.
I know, really. It's like a cathedral. Wow.
That's my sister for you.
Talk about a laboratory.
Pascal, what is she like?
My sis? Well, she's a year older than me and totally smart. She's accomplished all kinds of stuff.
Let's put her at 23, if I'm keeping track. Well, Pascal said she was like 22, as if she didn't have a clear concept of her age. So if we can stipulate to Pascal being 22, then Fourier is 23.
I guess she's my idol. I used to run around and copy whatever she did. So anyway, I'm sure she'll understand when we explain what's going on.
Could the Valkanist be inside this laboratory?
That would be awesome, huh? But yeah, I don't know. Right now, we should just try and find Fourier.
It would explain the size of the laboratory if there were a Valkanist inside of it. It is very interesting to me, this idea of a world in which each of the three major countries has this supermassive energy source, and yet they're also capable of hiding it or obscuring its location to people. Like just the idea that they have the equivalent of a giant nuclear reactor powering everything, but it's a mystery as to exactly where it is. Pretty interesting and unusual, I think.
We spent a long time here in Fendel, and yet we're still not any closer to finding the Valkanists.
Please keep such negativity in check. It's detrimental to group morale.
I understand. I just feel like Richard is suffering while we're running around in circles.
Richard is suffering? I cannot even begin to fathom what you're talking about.
There has to be some reason Richard's acting the way that he is. I know this isn't what he wanted.
I care not for his reasons. If King Richard does not put a stop to his current behavior, then I will be left with no choice but to kill him myself.
Hubert, no. I refuse to think like that. If that's your position, then I'll just prove to you that I can stop him.
However this ends, I fear the sin will be mine alone to bear. My brother lacks the temperament to kill a friend.
Hubert the Sin Eater. Another trope we've seen time and again in the Tales games. I hope it doesn't come to that. Oh, is it a dungeon? It's floor 1. Well, I suppose if it's a governmental research facility and we're enemies of the Fendel government, it would only make sense that there might be soldiers here we have to fight. Well, and remember, we talked about this in Strata, but it suspiciously didn't come up when we were talking with the president or anything like that. There was more than one person who talked about the threat of being sent to prison looming over them in a way that, like, yeah, also, like, you know, even the US and that form of democracy has, like, the threat of prison looming over everything, but it did feel a bit more like overtly police statey in Strata. So yeah, the idea of the systems of control and oversight that come with government here, I think, and even Windor, like maybe not a police state, but also like a strict monarchy, and under Richard, I think we have reason to believe tyranny, right? So different forms of government, but I think there's plenty of evidence to the conclusion that all of them seem to intrude on the lives and the thriving of the individual in their own special deleterious ways. A part of something looks like it should do something, but you're not sure what. Please complete the energy circuit. More block puzzles. Me love it. Ooh. Well, this does certainly scream Amarcian technology. And we've had the help of Fourier and the Enclave, so that makes sense. Ah! Enemies. Sealed behind a door, but thank goodness we opened the door. Yeah, and exactly to your point, Grail, like, what an interesting and provocative way of showing the different styles of control, right? Where the monarchy and its influence over the populace is extremely overt and explicit in Windor, Whereas in a police state like Fendel, it's all subterfuge and the threat is below the surface, and part of what makes it work is the fact that it's hard to identify and point at the ultimate source of authority or who's responsible for anything in the way in which responsibility was diffused in a state like the USSR, right? And in the way that their literal source of power is also obscured. Look at our massive rock. Our rock is bigger than yours, and there's nothing you can do about it.
There she goes again.
So I imagine it's a bunch of Eleth flowing through these tubes. Be interesting to see if they all terminate at the Valkanus or if there's something else going on here. But a lot of suspenseful build-up to whatever may or may not happen in the depths.
We're ready for battle. Slow down.
Each new discovery brings us one step closer.
Yeah, that distribution of time is interesting too, isn't it, Grail? Do you have a sense of whether you feel like the time we've spent in Fendel is longer than the time we spent in Windor, ignoring the childhood arc? So I don't know. I do feel like there's something interesting with just the amount of time and exploration we've spent here, but I might also be overweighting it just because it's more recent in my memory relative to the time we spent going through stuff like Wallbridge and re-encountering Richard and everything like that. Although perhaps that's part of what makes it feel different as well, the fact that our time in Windor was so colored by re-encounters and first encounters with a variety of characters, whereas now it's really like the group has formed, and so this adventure in Fendel is much more to do with just getting to know each other and living with each other and figuring out what it is that they intend to do next, rather than the discovery and constitution of the group, which colors the time in a country in a different way, I would say. You think it's weighted towards Windor? Yeah. Be interesting to go back and just account for it by the hours we spent in it on the stream. Good to have an explicit record of that, at least. Definitely interesting how clear-cut and discrete the vibes are between the three countries, though. To our point, right? Like, you can think very clearly about, oh, what's the time we spent here and what's sort of the theme of this leg of the journey versus that one. While there are oftentimes so many different state-level actors in the Tales games, I feel like oftentimes it's not so clearly carved up by different biomes with, as we pointed out on earlier streams, like even different soundtracks to each one. It feels much more discrete across the kingdoms in a way that's interesting to me. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a kind of punctuated climax in their overall journey, so it makes sense that it would be shorter and kind of more anxious. Whereas now it makes sense for it to take more time and kind of unfold gradually, because really we're trying to figure out what the hell is going on with Richard, and Richard is off doing who knows what outside the scope of the party's ken. Yeah, I saw that. Just wanted to equip Sophie first. Elith Recharger.
Is this seriously an Elith recharger?
More of her research,
Pascal,
I imagine.
Are you saying that this machine can replenish spent Elith?
Wow, sis! I can't believe she invented
Ah,
this!
no, Fourier.
That sounds pretty handy.
It's far more than just handy. This could supply enough Elith for the entire kingdom of Fendel.
Uh-oh.
Is something wrong? Please don't tell me it's broken.
Not broken so much as fundamentally defective. Yeah, it's useless.
Muda.
Pascal?
Nope. This is beyond any of the Amarcians.
Me when I show my arguments to anyone else. Oh, yeah, interesting, but fundamentally defective. No, I'm kidding.
Careful, everyone! Slash! Roll down! Slash! Eat this! Rip to pieces! Stampede strike! Roll down!
Destruction! Enemy!
Oh, yeah, so she does have arts to just summon and channel the glyphs outside of her mystic arts. I just saw her summon Blood Fawn.
Victory is ours!
Or channel him, as the case may be. This was the room we just went into, I think, right? Ay, ay, ay. Getting interrupted in the middle of screen-to-screen navigation. Ah, very cool. Yeah, I think the title we're working on for Pascal right now is the one for Cyandini's art. Yeah, Cyandini certainly doesn't, so probably not self-arted.
Why the pigtails, Sophie? Pigtails? Your hair, those!
These? The captain said they'd let me fly through the air.
Oh, I get it.
That's a cool twist as well in terms of how the summoning mechanics work in this world with Elith versus what we're used to from other modes of spirit summoning in other games, because typically summoning is something that's one-dimensional in the sense that you can channel spirits in one way in battle, usually through a mystic art or some equivalent functionality. So the idea that Pascal has two modalities for engaging with each of the spirits in battle is an interesting twist. It almost puts me in mind of kind of the implied metaphysics of Kramels and Fringing in Tales of Eternia. The idea that because the spirits are just kind of the aggregated sentience of various elements, if you happen to be someone who's attuned to those elements and able to manipulate them, then you can also invoke the spirits by causing the elements to manifest and recombine in different ways. So in Tales of Eternia, you get something like fringing to bring about different arts and spells based on different combinations of the Kramels. And in something like Tales of Grace of Zeph, here you get different ways in which to channel and call on the spirits, or the glyphs, I should say, as opposed to just a singular mode. Which way is the right way? It has to be on a title, right? I can check the titles he has after this. You may already have it.
Aw, too bad. Nice try, though.
The weak ailment decreases all of your stats. Oh, it's like they know me. It's tempting to ignore it, because it's not as out and out annoying as some of the others. But you should really take care of it as soon as possible. It's true, the ones that seem like you can get away with ignoring are usually the most insidious. Oh boy, it's a party in this room, isn't it? Yeah, so what's Asbel working with? Does he have... It doesn't look like he has anything from Moonlight Circle yet. This will give him Demon Fist, though. That's something.
Let's get this underway.
Slow him down! Slow him down!
So many elf bursts.
Okay. Oh, Lord of Berger,
That was a very funny clip. Thank you for sharing that with me. It made me feel better about my own suffering.
Great, Pascal. Oh, you finally realized my greatness? Let's celebrate with a high five. Huh?
Yeah, because you can talk all day about taking everyone on with a single character, but I think it's hard to really wrap one's head around what level of nonsense that is until it's actually shown in a video clip. Oh, you're a better man than I. I enjoy watching things like that, but I am not the guy to do it. Have you made any more progress in the challenge run to keep up with the stream, or are you still sitting on it for the moment? The old Dark Soulsism, just get good. That's always the solution. You can try to wrap it in more convoluted explanations or tactics, but it's always just get good.
We're ready for battle.
Nothing like Beast to create some breathing room. That's a real kind of brain rest, though, right? Just put yourself into another task that requires a different kind of thinking and reasoning. Keeps you limber.
Victory is ours.
I've been forcing myself to remember that in this latest writing project of mine, because sometimes it can be so tempting just to you know, bang your head against a wall with the same project, and sometimes you just force yourself to do something else for 20 minutes, watch a show, go for a run, work on a different creative project, and it can really just totally, you know, unlock a different perspective or refresh you on the task at hand. That's true, yes. It feels more like payoff as opposed to a mashable button as in other games. I wanted to just get Demon Fist over and done with. Oh, looks like we got it. Yeah, perfect. All right. So now we have another assault art. Demon Fist. I thought we did. Am I dumb? Oh, is it one of the special ones that just doesn't show up there for some reason? Can I just... Where is it? Oh, I see. So hold the button down at the end of... What, Demon Fang? Does it not tell you? Do you just have to know to do that? Oh, there it is, Demon Fist. Ah, yeah, so you hold X during a 2cc assault art. Alright. So specific. I'll try it out.
That
I do love
looks
Demon
really
Fist.
Cool.
I've wanted this ever since I joined the Knight Academy.
Temper your enthusiasm.
Why?
Those who rely too heavily on equipment neglect to hone themselves.
Wait, wouldn't having equipment you love make you want to work that much harder?
In the old days, swordsmen became legend without touching that sort of thing. But times have changed. Now the equipment does all the work, and any old half-wit can wield it.
Back in my day! Oh, Captain Malik, I resonate with you on a spiritual level, my man. I'm old. When did it happen? It feels rather incongruous to me that these scorpions are spellcasters somehow. Incongruous and all the more frustrating. Nice! That is very satisfying.
We did it, Sophie! And she's gone.
She sensed danger and fled.
Malik the Sorcerer. You may have noticed that certain arts are grayed out in the arts list. Oh, you mean what I was just wrestling with. Your timing is almost impeccable. To activate these linked arts, you must hold X while moving through the assault arts paths in battle. It can be tricky when you need to make split-second decisions on whether or not to use a certain art, but once you master it, you'll be fighting with style! Ah, my ultimate dream. Joke's on you, game. I have no style. That is fun, though. I feel like it's yet another little Tales of Grace's F innovation where it's a little complicated. It's unusual in the sense of not really having a clear analog in many of the other games, but it's not impossible to wrap your head around either. Oh, I see. Sometimes you need to take 2 steps back before you can take 3 steps forward. It does get my mental gears turning in terms of we never really got a clear explanation about the origins of the parasites in the Rokugan to my memory, and now here we have these mysterious, similar-looking creatures in this suspicious Fendelian lab that uses Amarcian technology. Are they suspicious, similar parasitic scorpion spellcasters because of similar mysterious origins that are as yet unclear to us? It's the fun kind of suspicious to raise cogent questions as we're navigating this world, I would say. Oh, interesting. So they were an addition just to the F version of the game. Very cool.
Remember your training.
And again, in that same spirit I was talking about, strikes me as a nice kind of addition to add another dimension to the game without thereby undermining or overcomplicating the underlying game. You have to respect the deftness required for something like that.
No one can stand before my blade.
I'm glad that I was reminded about linked arts, though, because it reminded me of that dragon dance or whatever it's called, too, which is another very cool one.
I can't lose. Now, there. Dragon.
Ice Dragon Fury, that's what it's called. Or Flurry, maybe.
Be gone.
Oh, interesting.
Scorching flames! Wheel of vigor!
Eat this.
That Eleth mixer is no child's toy.
No, it's very serious. Bench experience, nice. Classic ability. Ah, and Asbel's weapon was finally tempered. Nice, I was waiting for that. So it came from that direction, and now we have two paths here. This seems to be the elevator down, so I'll wrap around first. Let's keep going. The suspense is killing me. Ay, ay, ay. Orange scarf. All right, the first step on the road to fashionability. The first step is the hardest, as we all know. I'm excited the next time we get to a shop to take advantage of all of these shards we've been collecting at an improved drop rate. Talk about a delightful addition to the Eleth mixer. B4.
Remember your training.
Gotcha.
Before the climax. I assume you were joking, but if it wasn't clear from my context, it was more on the floor numbered B4, like the basement floor B4. That's what I was talking about.
I just invented a new tactic.
Oh?
First, I toss out a peach gel, and while the enemy is distracted,
Then?
I eat
Okay,
an
I
apple.
do love all of these post-battle conversations, but we've heard that one a million times. Oh, this was the scarf. Right. Wait, was it? Oh, now I'm all turned around. No, that's up. What? Oh, okay, here we go. Yes. I had forgotten we had gone down. Yeah, I mean, definitely nice continuity between gameplay and story to have Malik and Pascal at this moment, but I don't, now that you mention it, I don't hate the idea of switching it up a little bit. Maybe we can try putting Hubert back in for a bit, in place of Malik. He's been a little bit too glass and not especially canon in the last few fights where it's mattered. Yeah, more so than some of the other games, it seems like. I wonder if there's anything to that. Especially when, like we were talking about a while ago, like, a lot of them are pretty glassy, but not all evenly. Like, Sophie, not especially. I don't think I actually pressed this. There we go. I suppose at a minimum, just going off of what we know up to this point in the story, you know, Sophie being able to survive and reconstitute from death within the concept of the story, at least according to our best understanding of what happened with her confrontation with that monster in the childhood arc and then coming back at Lod Hill. There's reason to believe that something about her is making her tankier than the other party members.
Let's keep moving.
Oh, we're getting all kinds of soul orbs. A lot of grindy encounters in this area. This one takes us up. Yeah, that's a good point. And they were very upfront in the tutorials about that being part of the whole gambit of Malik's combat style. Leaving himself open with virtually every attack. Which is an interesting kind of just discipline and combat approach. Especially from someone who is a seasoned knight. That's one of the many things that has me excited and hopeful to learn more of his backstory, like what... Well, first, what the hell is that? But then second, after that, what was it that led him to develop that particular way of going about things? Wow, so not just the creature suspended inside it, which smacks of the very similar aesthetic in Tarkaron, but also the fact that it looks like it's being clutched by hands? Oh, what an arresting image. Profane creation! And what a name to go with it. The Island of Doctor Fourier! Oh no! Dr. Moreau.
Where are you, sis?
I've had about enough of this. The facility is full of monsters, and we still haven't found your sister. Just how large-scale a project is this?
The size of this laboratory alone means that we're getting near the Valkanus. How else could a poor country justify such a lavish facility as this?
That is another very good point.
Sophie, they're having an important conversation right now. Please, don't interrupt. But the monster in that tank. Don't get too close. No, there's something wrong with it.
It's profane.
I didn't notice it at first, but now that you mention it, there is something odd about it. From here, it almost seems like the creature was grown inside the tank, but is something like that even possible?
Could she be researching the creation of artificial monsters?
Getting interested. Getting interested. Anytime a JRPG, especially a Tales game, has anything to say about the nature or origin of monsters,
Very well.
you better believe it's going to be worth something. What are these things called? Taunting Helmite. Huh.
Gotcha. Let's keep moving.
That was the way we came. One more door up here. Nice! Oh, that's a get. That's good. You know, that's one of the points of anxiety for me. Like, are these also supposed to be monsters that she created? Are they just loose monsters that have, like, found their way into the lab? Like, what is the relationship between them and her experiments?
Between them or something.
That's not it at all.
Definitely seems to be some relation based on the allusion to the Island of Doctor Moreau. Genetic engineering. Shards and qualities. When dualizing equipment with shards, statistical improvement is based on the qualities of the gear. Rarer qualities tend to have higher stat increases, although you can sometimes find qualities with other benefits, such as ones that allow you to sell the dualized piece for a high price. Interesting that it took so many hours into the game before it explained that. I suppose it wanted to give you time to get familiar with dualizing per se before thinking about all the different permutations of it. Well, they are sisters. That's a good point to be bringing up, I reckon. Oh, it will be fun to see with such a distinctive personality as Pascal's. That makes it all the more tantalizing to consider what Fourier is like. And another great, very classic, like, JRPG move to wander all the way through this big laboratory and, like, learn about who Fourier is through first going to her house and then seeing all of the fruits of her labors before ever encountering the character herself. Like reading someone's environmental diary.
Be gone!
I hope I was of some use.
I have a hunch we're getting near the bottom. Down, down into the depths of the earth. No wonder no one could find the Valkanus Creus. They buried the damn thing. Oh, really? That's hilarious. Why do you say technically? Like, does it not heal health under normal conditions, but sometimes it does?
Look once with awe upon the dual blade warrior, and never look again.
Oh man. Big dual blade energy. Ooh, Pascal got a better in flame. I like that.
Enemies.
Be gone! Wait! Not yet! It's over! Rip to pieces! Stampede strike!
Over in a flash.
How long is a flash?
It's less than a second.
Why is he lying?
He's insufferable.
More to the point, why did Hubert get the victory screen for Asbel's amazing Mystic Art finish? Ah, so you can use it to heal, but more as a joke than anything else. That's funny. That gives it a fun characterization, though, almost as if, like, he's trying his best to be a healer, but that is evidently not his bailiwick. Nervous. Everybody heal up. Do we have any good in-battle things? Physical defense seems attractive. Creus attack seems attractive. Physical attack up. Yeah, why don't we do that? Beefier physical attack. Never a bad choice. Alright, onward.
The monsters in this lab are pretty strange, aren't they?
Oh, DNA!
I've heard that Fendel has been investing in biological weaponry. Perhaps this lab is being used to facilitate it.
Oh,
Watch out, guys. This one looks
that
like
one's
trouble.
not in a tank.
I expect the best from
Varus.
everyone.
Yeah, I've been there many a time. Sometimes you just need a few HP to squeak it out in a tight situation. Especially if it's from someone who's not designated as your typical healer. You can really mix things up in a way that changes it. And you have to do it for the fun. Oh man, that was a slow swipe. Tricked me.
Eat this! Not yet! Win! Wait, how could I? Yeah, there!
I was just thinking that. It seems to be quite a theme, doesn't it?
Each of you the gift of rebirth. Light take form and criticize you.
I won't dismiss
Oh my god. What a long Elif burst. Hubert just cannot stay alive. Yeah, but sometimes, like you said, if it's clutch, right? I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
My regards. Oh no, not scorpions. That's so much worse than bees. Oh my god. Wow, that escalated really quickly. It is a funny name for a scorpion type enemy, a needle spider. Yeah, it's better than no resurrection spell. Oh my god, be competent! Use an item! I swear to God. The fucking idiot couldn't even get off a life bottle. That is really disappointing. Worthless girl. Alright. Don't think I really want to mess with our equipment. Anything better for her? Yeah, that's much better for her. No, I assigned her to use a life bottle like at least 10 seconds before she died, and she just could not get off a frame to use it. I'm gonna do that. Alright, let's try it again. Run it back, run it back.
I expect the best from everyone.
You didn't summon a bunch of weenies. Much easier. I thought he was gonna stay flinched through his entire Elif. I was wrong. Tell me, you beast, do you think that Fourier stays in her lab because she too lives in fear of what she created? Also, how do you already have another Elif break? Are you kidding me? That's illegal. It's ridiculous, yeah. 2 to R0 so far, somehow. Yeah, I think you're right. It does just kind of be really aggressive with the boss. Bringing in 3 scorpions just feels unfair. The bees I can deal with, but 3 spellcasting tanks? That's a little beyond the pale. Again! What the fuck? Fuck you, Asbel.
Drink of the...
Don't like it.
I strike with the purest of light, I call upon thee.
Thanks, Hubert. I think part of it is I have to be more aggressive with life bottles since my party is incapable of healing. And maybe more aggressive with healing items too, actually, as I think of it. Jesus, thanks, Asbel. Take it right across the broadside, why don't you? Finally, one.
It's over! Rip to pieces! Stampede strike!
Healing light, I call
Mighty guard! Prepare yourself! Dance like the damned! Instant balls!
Be gone!
That'll help. Ah, and there are the fucking scorpions. God damn it. How much HP does he have left? Can we push it? No, he has 11,000 left. I think we have to deal with them. I am going to be more aggressive with the healing areas. Oh my god. No, we haven't seen it. I would very much like to, but we have not seen it yet. Stay alive, you shithead!
I won't disgrace myself.
He's worse than a glass cannon. He's just glass. Hubert would disgrace himself again.
Imbue the light of light.
Demon Fang! Tiger Blade! Okay! Fall! Vanish!
Imbue the light of light.
Demon Fang! Flash!
Imbue the light of light.
Yes, the boss earlier in the stream was also not great. And I'm on moderate too, so I'm a little confounded, to be honest. And it's not as if we're skipping random encounters, so I don't know if this is supposed to be an especially hard part of the game, or if I'm just not abusing enemy weaknesses as much as it wants me to be. But it feels just like we had an unreasonable spike in difficulty. Yes, it definitely feels like a boss, there's no doubt about that. No pushovers.
Pulled it off, somehow.
And everyone was alive at the end, that's something. Hey, hey, hey. An elevator key? Where was he keeping it?
I'm surprised you were able to defeat my Varus.
But why does she sound evil?
Fourier!
Evil and so measured, in contrast to Pascal.
Pascal, is that you? Oh, good heavens, I thought someone was trying to steal my work. Wow, I can't believe you built that Varus and everything. You're amazing, sis. It would have been more amazing if you hadn't defeated it so easily.
That's right, it's all part of the texture of the experience, isn't it, Grail?
So, what are you doing here?
That is a good way to put it, too. It's not unfun, it's not impossible, it's just a little bit nuts.
We came to talk about Fendel's Valkanus Creus experiment. On Forbrenir? I'll have you know, I spent years working on the research used in that experiment. I may have used your work as a starting point, but what matters are results. You know that.
It's not stealing if I put my name on it.
It's okay. I didn't come here to take credit for anything. I know you've done a ton of work on it.
You can plagiarize me all you want, sis, because I'm a nice person.
But no matter how smart you are, sis, the research is still flawed. And just what does that mean?
It means it doesn't work. I thought you were supposed to be a genius.
Look, it's gonna be a lot faster if I can just show you. Do you have any Creus fragments laying around? Like, maybe one the size of a bean.
I mean, the kind that can make a giant crater like the one outside of the capital?
How's this? That's perfect. Here, gimme. Impressive, yes? No one has ever been able to extract Eleth from fire Creus so efficiently.
It's also interesting that I don't know how much you could make out of this, but just in terms of little aspects of this world that feel different and distinctive and are so environmental that it's perhaps easy to overlook them. Just the idea that the way energy works in this world is that it can like crystallize spontaneously maybe and just fragment such that it's lying around, like the way people, like they just did in this scene, and like we saw people in the little hamlet earlier in Fendel doing. You can just be scrounging around on the ground in search of Creus because it just kind of naturally happens to fragment and be there. That's an interesting way to think about the way in which energy cycles through the world, I guess, seems to be the implication. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's the biggest bean in the world, Grail. Maybe it's one of those magnifying glasses on the outside of it.
Give this thingy a little chunka. Pascal, what are you doing?
I'm chunking. I thought I was very clear.
Guys, you might want to get back. What just happened? See? That's the trouble with fire Creus. If you apply too much pressure when extracting the Eleth, it starts a chain reaction. And once that happens, it starts accelerating all the surrounding Eleth, and then kapow! You can contain the damage when it's a handheld weapon or something, but with the Valkanus, it would be a total disaster. So that's why you never finished your research? Yeah, I saw where it was headed, so I just chucked the whole kit and caboodle. And that's why we gotta stop the experiment before everybody gets blown up. I can't do that. Yeah, it might be tough for you to tell them, huh? Well, look, how's about you just show me where they are and I'll just do it. Are you trying to make a fool of me? Am I what now? You saw where it was headed? You just worked it all out in your head! Do you have any concept of how hard I've worked to complete the research you've abandoned? You always do this! You mimic whatever I do, then just effortlessly do it better! I kill myself to be successful, and then you sweep in with your quick thinking and fancy talking, and you just leap ahead of me like it's nothing! Fourier,
Oh, these poor girls.
Fourier, we must get to the Valkanus Creus.
We haven't heard somber piano music in a while, have we?
Even if the experiment wasn't a danger, there's a different threat on the way. If we don't act now, it will be drained of its Eleth, just like the other Valkanists.
Wait, the other Valkanists?
Yes, so we have to stop it, no matter what. Please, Fourier, tell us where Forbrenir is.
I don't know where it is, but the man in charge of the experiment does.
Who's that?
Fendel's chief science officer, Kurt Bessel.
Kurt Bessel?
You know him, Malik?
You know him, Captain?
Yes. Though I never imagined we would meet again like this.
Where can we find him?
The Ministry of Science is located in the capital, although I couldn't say if he's there at the moment.
Thank you. That's a good place to start. We'll try to speak with Kurt ourselves.
Do as you like. It matters not to me.
Poor Pascal. So deflated. And for Pascal to be that deflated, someone so sunny and carefree, hurts all the more. Man. You have the key to the express elevator, yes? That's right over there. The military's main engineer, Kurt, can usually be found in the capital. I can't say if he's there now, though. I was hoping there'd be a conversation around the double helix. I wonder whether that'll catalyze anything in Hubert and Asbel's relationship. But what an interesting further portrait of not just two siblings who had a past together, but someone who kind of obsessed over and lost herself in relation to the reputation and efforts of her sibling in a way where she sort of, through her own grasping at that illusion, led herself to be overwhelmed and subsumed by it in a way that really had nothing to do with Pascal. So sad, and also deeply Buddhist in a game that's continuing to prompt us to make those considerations of spiritual versus material relationships and the reality of things versus the grasping at them. Yeah, well, it's the whole, it's the Buddhist focus on the way in which suffering traps us in these prisons of unreality, right? Like, I think it's perfectly fitting to say that they should both be pitied, and it's sad for both of them because you can see how they've just, through the contingent factors of their relationships, been imprisoned in this network of suffering when there's really nothing between them that should make them antagonistic to each other or bring them pain.
Well, we got our Valkanist information, but I wish it hadn't gone down that way.
It was the best outcome we could have expected. At the very least, we learned that Fourier's primary objective wasn't bioweapons development.
Hubert, you saw how painful that was for Pascal and Fourier. Don't you feel anything at all?
Of course, but that ultimately has no connection to our key objectives.
But I hate seeing Pascal like this.
I know what you mean. Isn't there something we can do to help them work it out?
Stop this at once! I can't allow the two of you to waste more time discussing irrelevant nonsense. We have a mission to accomplish.
Hubert.
Yeah, it's like Fourier was trying to live up to the legacy of her sister, which was a legacy that Pascal didn't even want or care about. And meanwhile, like, Asbel is still kind of torturing himself over his, his relationship with a legacy that he felt he could never live up to, and that was foisted upon him in terms of being the Lord of Lant and then a knight and all of these things that he never really was able to fulfill or follow through on. Whereas Hubert, I think, by virtue of the way in which he perceived Asbel rejecting him and his family rejecting him, was trying to fill that role that Asbel never felt right in anyway.
She felt that way about me. All this time. I've been making her miserable all this time.
Yeah, a lot of smugness in the art, Grail.
I should go back and apologize.
I don't think that will help. Fourier's problem isn't you, Pascal. It's Fourier.
That's what we were saying. You know why Hubert is the one who knows that, because Hubert has lived with
Her
it too.
spirit has been crushed by years of doubt and self-loathing. Sympathy will only make the problem worse.
But I love her, you know? I just wish she knew that. Oh, Pascal.
Don't worry. She'll understand someday. You're the only one who can stop the Valkanus experiment now. Fourier knows that's true, even if she'll never admit it. If the experiment isn't stopped, Fourier's work will end up killing a whole lot of people. And no one wants that. Especially not you.
He's right. Helping us will save your sister's reputation and maybe even her life. Plus, we need you, Pascal. We can't do this alone.
Well, that's what I was saying. The way in which the harrowing reality of the way in which her sister sees her just takes the wind out of her sails and totally, like, thrusts her personality back down to earth from the clouds. It's crazy.
So, come on, pull yourself together and let's go.
Oh, little bro. Thanks, guys. You're the best.
Oh.
That was all right, Hubert.
I know what she's going through. And
That's what I
besides,
said.
it would be far too quiet if she weren't around. Now can we all
No.
stop talking and just head for Zavhert? There's no time to waste.
I was thinking, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the structure of this game's story and the way it's unfolding. And one thing that occurred to me as pretty interesting is the idea that, of course, the whole game is kicked off by the situation which foregrounds this explicit time jump of 7 years, where we have enough of the context on both sides of it to understand from the inside and help progress the experiences of what these particular characters are going through. Asbel and Sharia and Sophie and Richard and Hubert. But then it seems like part of what's going on now in the story is kind of as we've gotten more development and more foundation for those characters to build relationships and understand that gap in their own history and what it means to come back together. Now they're also trying to figure out the next steps they want to take in the world by helping other people who are similarly wayward to negotiate similar gaps that we don't have as direct access to, because it's not as foregrounded in the narrative, which I think is important, and we don't have the same kind of access to it. But think about what just happened with Pascal and her sister. Pascal, for all we know, was basically just off in her own world doing her own research away from home for 3 years and ostensibly hadn't seen her sister since then. And then it's only when they come back together, when they get this kind of confrontation that had many shades of the confrontations that Asbel had when he saw Hubert for the first time in Lant in the adult arc, or when Sharia confronted him and was so guarded and unwilling to process things. And remember also, Malik is back in his homeland for the first time in 20 years, he said. And it seems like very soon he's going to be encountering someone from his distant past. So I think there's a kind of a subtle, what's the word? An iterative working through and reworking through of the same kind of time gap issues that can cause us at least to hypostatize aspects of our relationship and give reality to these kinds of tensions and suffering that we experience, and as I said, turn them into prisons that can oftentimes only be overcome by someone on the outside of that with the perspective to help you dissolve that prison and let you see the other person for who they are and see yourself for who you are. So it's interesting to perhaps use that as a foundation and tether for what the subsequent arcs are working with in this game as we continue to work through it. 3 skits at the save point to Zavhert. All right, well, since I kicked things off late and it's a Friday night, and you also got here late, Grail, I will wander us back to Zavhert, and we can see those skits, and then we can wrap things up for the evening. I think that sounds like a nice way to go. And then we can save all of the dualizing and such for next time. I'm not even gonna bother reviving Hubert at this point. I'm done with that dude. It's because you were so late, bro. Yeah, we're on overtime. It's okay though, like I said, it's a Friday night. It's a holiday weekend in the States. It's a good vibe to wrap things up.
I didn't fight all those enemies for nothing.
My nightly plans are going back into the writer's room Thunderdome for working through my my philosophy articles. Don't worry, you're not eating into anything. The live book club adventure always takes priority, you know that.
Asbel, I have a request to make. If
Oh,
you're
what?
okay, I want you to fight me.
I wasn't expecting that.
Fight you? What's this about, Sophie?
It's what I want. Please.
If you're just looking to train, then all right.
Yes, let's call it practice. But don't
All
hold
right.
anything back.
I guess we're doing this.
Okay, Asbel?
This can only end super well.
Strike! Not yet!
Sword assault!
Okay, death by moonlight!
No mercy!
Yeah!
Sword assault!
Strike!
Yeah, no mercy!
Yeah! Strike!
Sword assault!
Strike!
Sword assault! No mercy! Right!
Good, good.
Sword assault!
Strike! Be gone!
No mercy! No mercy! Sword assault!
Be gone!
Sword assault! Sword assault! Eagle dive!
Good.
Right! Light cosmic!
Roar! Dive! Roar! Not yet! You're mine!
Yeah!
Roar! You're mine!
Flurry! No! Shine!
Oh, I didn't like it.
Sword assault! No mercy! Sword assault!
It's a very good theme.
No!
It's a great theme.
Sword assault! Eagle dive! No! No mercy! Shine!
My favorite part of this is how she can periodically heal. It's great.
Strike! Be gone!
Let's go! Shine!
Roar! Be gone!
Flurry! Shine!
Shut up!
Sword assault! No mercy! Flurry! Shine!
You got it, buddy.
Strike! Be gone! Strike! Be
Dragon Axe! No mercy! Sword assault! No mercy!
It's over! Rip to
Maybe that'll get her.
Stampede strike! Strike! Be gone! It's over! Rip to pieces!
Maybe that'll get her.
Stampede strike!
I didn't fight all those enemies for nothing.
I'm not apologizing for that. If she's gonna ambush me at a save point, I will punish her with Mystic Arts.
Victory! But man, am I exhausted. You look pretty tired too, Sophie.
Yes, but I'm relieved. Now I know if we have to fight Richard,
If it ain't broke, don't
I
fix
think
it,
it
right?
will be okay.
Yeah?
I realized something while fighting you, Asbel.
Realized what?
That you really are my friend.
I
Oh,
still don't know what you're getting at, but... Achoo! Oh man, I'm starting to cool down.
I don't want you two to catch cold. I'll get you something hot to drink.
Let's go, Sophie.
Okay. I didn't feel the urge to erase Asbel while fighting him. That means I can do the same when fighting Richard. Because he's also my friend.
pact adherent. Ah, going back to that theme of pacts that we were talking about a couple times ago. That's interesting too, the idea that through an exercise with one of her friends, she can come to understand how friendship informs her relationship with an enemy in combat so that she can feel prepared and have a mental model and a philosophy of friendship before she confronts Richard. There's a lot of depth to that. Where's pact adherent? I wanted to see that one. Probably over here. No. Pact adherent. She wanted to fight her friend because she believed in the pact they made. Love that. Ah, fair enough. Well, a little sad to miss a skit. The completionist in me is, but I'm not going to complain about getting that done on the first try either. It looks like it's only one skit right now, unless it was also counting the skit that was the follow-up to the fight, which maybe that was the situation. Well, glad we did that. That was a touching note on which to end, especially in the aftermath of the agony of a friendship in need of repair, or a sisterhood in need of repair with Pascal and Fourier. Nice to see someone doing the work to actually understand that from the inside outside and build those productive bonds with others, as Sophie is. All right, dear friends, it flew by between it being a shorter stream than I became accustomed to in the Beyond the Dawn binges, and in it simply being a fine Friday night adventure. We summited the mountain, we learned about the Amarcians, a little bit, at least. There's still plenty to unravel, I'm sure. And how interesting, too, to think about as we continue to delve further into the depths of Fendel, what it is for the Amarcians to be supporting and working with the Fendelians and all of their tyrannical, oppressive government regimes in their scientific efforts. Strikes me as an interesting color for a series in which we oftentimes get those sorts of older races who are keepers of secret knowledge or special lore, like the Critians or even the elves. But they oftentimes take the tack of, for that exact reason, living in isolation and shunning outsiders, whereas it seems much more suspicious and perhaps even insidious that the Amarcians would be helping Fendel with something like their experiments on their Valkanus. But perhaps there's space yet for a good outcome, especially now that Pascal, with the support and enhanced understanding provided by this particular group of people who have been through so much, is on the case and following not only after her sister, but now after the government and the Ministry of Science. Perhaps there is some hope to be found in there. Yeah, it's like a wizard, right? Never arrives early or late, only exactly when he needs to, Grail. And so was the case with you. I'm glad you did show up, my friend. Great to see you, as always. Pottery was great seeing you earlier, too. It's been a wonderful Friday night, a wonderful week back to a pure focus on the Tales of Grace's F streams. Excited to see where we go next. Excited to give you some more written studies as well in the near future. Keep you posted on that, our other projects. I'm sure Dana and I will be dropping a new podcast on the other side of the weekend. And then, if you can believe it, we'll already be on the threshold of December. Where is this year going? Which will feature plenty of new content, I'm sure. Some special guest stars back on the stream. Old favorites returning, but in a potentially in the first three-way co-op that we have had on the stream since its inception, which should promise some fun literary critique and shenanigans and just fun period as well. So stay tuned. Plenty of good times ahead, my friends. I hope you had time to consider all of that for which you're thankful yesterday. And I hope that whether it's a long weekend for you or just a regular weekend, you find time to enjoy it, to play a game, to enjoy some good literature, to think well and to game well. And you know where we'll be on Monday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. We'll be right back here, venturing further into Fendel, further into the arcs and developments of these characters as they wrestle with their place in the world and the nature of Richard and whether it's possible to save him. You have a great night too, Grail. Good to see you. See you all again real soon. I'm Aaron Suduko. This has been Tales of Praxis. Have a good one. Next time.